Hello everyone. Do you want to pick the right MMO in 2025? Before you sink hours into an MMO, you need to know which ones are thriving and which are on life support. Which MMOs ruled 2024, which are making a comeback, and which are fading fast. I've analyzed the player stats and trends, so before you commit your time or money, let's break down the biggest MMORPGs going into 2025, so you can make a safe and informed choice. What I'm not going to give you is reading the nonsense list on this dodgy website. Now let's get started. EVE Online is a sci-fi MMORPG that has been running for over 20 years. It's famous for its massive space battles where players join corporations, trade, and fight for control of entire star systems. Launched in 2003, EVE remains actively supported on PC, Linux, and Mac OS. Its high-stakes PvP means that when your ship is destroyed, it's gone for good. The game is free to play, but it also has the most expensive monthly sub in the whole genre, $20 a month, which unlocks key features, making it essential for serious players. Despite its complexity and cost, EVE has thrived for over 2 decades, proving its unique and lasting appeal. We do have accurate data for the game provided by EVEoffline.net, and it seems to have been steadily hovering around the 25,000 to 30,000 concurrent players throughout 2024. RuneScape 3, the modern version of RuneScape, is the least popular and most heavily monetized entry in the series. Player data shows that the concurrent player count has remained steady over the past decade, typically ranging from 25,000 to 35,000 players at peak times. While the game offers extensive content as a point-and-click sandbox MMO, the prevalent pay-to-win cash shop can diminish the sense of achievement. However, playing in Iron Man mode, which disables all microtransactions and trading, provides a more rewarding experience true to the game's original spirit. Guild Wars 2 recently celebrated its 12th anniversary, solidifying its place as one of the most enduring and unique MMOs. Since its explosive launch in 2012, the game has maintained a loyal player base thanks to its buy-to-play model with no subscription fees, with an emphasis on horizontal progression and commitment to regular updates. The game only exists on PC and Mac, but exact player numbers are hard to pin down, especially since most players use the official launcher rather than Steam. I would estimate a daily peak concurrent players of about 50,000 players. One of Guild Wars 2's standout features is its approach to exploration and large-scale events. Unlike traditional MMOs that rely on quest hubs and glowing exclamation points, Guild Wars 2 encourages players to fully immerse themselves in its vast zones, rewarding curiosity with dynamic events, hidden secrets, and achievements. The game's world events are a true spectacle, with massive groups of players coming together to take down enormous dragons in battle that feel both chaotic and cinematic. A major draw of the game is its incredibly generous free trial. The base game is completely free, that's 80 levels with no held back features, and unlike many other MMOs, there isn't even an optional subscription model. However, its expansions, which contain some of the game's best content, do require a purchase. These expansions have introduced fan-favorite features like the mount system, easily the best mount system in any MMO, making traversal more enjoyable than in almost any other game you played. Despite its strength, Guild Wars 2 has faced challenges in mass appeal, largely due to its lack of a rigid trinity system of tank, healer, and DPS roles, which most MMO players tend to expect. Still, the game has remained financially successful for NCSoft, even as its population has tapered off slightly since the peak of its End of Dragons expansion in 2022. Looking ahead, Guild Wars 3 was officially mentioned in a 2024 shareholder meeting, with reports indicating that it is in early development. However, Guild Wars 2 continues to receive consistent updates and remain profitable, meaning it's likely to stick around for years to come. New World has recently expanded with a cross-platform console release, significantly impacting its player distribution. While Steam numbers alone show marginal PC growth, that's not the full picture anymore. I would estimate the total player base across all platforms would reach daily peak concurrent numbers of about 50,000 players. The game stands out in the MMO genre with its unique combat system and blend of survival elements with traditional theme park MMO features. The game offers a massive seamless open world that truly shines during exploration, questing, and gathering activities. Every environment element from trees and bushes to rocks can be harvested to progress crafting and gathering skills. The combat system incorporates the classic trinity of tank, healer, and DPS, featuring challenging dungeons and raids alongside PvP battlegrounds and territory wars. From a monetization perspective, New World is notably fair compared to other MMOs, operating on a buy-to-play model with an optional battle pass and nearly nothing that's considered a pay-to-win element. Something that's pretty rare in the MMO genre, especially with the influx of Korean or Chinese MMOs, where pay-to-win is nearly a given. That said, the game has faced a rough patch in 2024, with PC players expressing frustration of a lack of meaningful updates. The developers seem to prioritize the console launch and overall rebrand, which may have cost them some of their original audience. This console expansion was a natural fit for the game, despite taking longer than expected to implement. And with an upcoming major expansion, they can potentially bring players back across all platforms.
Perhaps humans were fated to build the monoliths.
Once Human is a new free-to-play open-world post-apocalyptic survival MMO that takes a unique seasonal approach to its design. Every few weeks, a new season begins, resetting the world and introducing fresh changes. This cycle creates significant fluctuation in player numbers, as starting too close to a reset feels impractical. Despite this, the game has maintained a strong player base since launch. It's available on Steam, the Epic Store, and the NetEase launcher, so I would estimate a concurrent daily peak player count close to 60,000 players. And with upcoming releases on both mobile and console, its player count is likely to grow even further in 2025. Lost Ark, the free-to-play top-down MMO, has experienced a dramatic journey since its Western release in 2022, following its 2019 Eastern launch. The game, which blends elements of Diablo and Final Fantasy, initially exploded in popularity to become one of the most played MMOs, though its player count has significantly declined since then. At its core, Lost Ark offers some of the best combat in any top-down MMO you'll ever play. The fast-paced, visually stunning abilities combined with epic PvE boss fights, both solo and in group, make it an absolute thrill to play. PvP is also available for those seeking a competitive challenge. And the game features a diverse roster of classes, with more being added over time. Beyond combat, Lost Ark offers a vast world to explore, including an enjoyable sailing system that opens up new adventures. However, the game's downfall stems from its monetization and endgame loop. Lost Ark is heavily pay to win, with a gear progression system that constantly reminds players of its Eastern MMO roots. While it is possible to play for free, doing so requires patience and a high tolerance for grind-heavy mechanics. Additionally, botting has plagued the game, further dampening the experience of legitimate players. Despite these challenges, Lost Ark still has a dedicated community, and its core gameplay remains strong. If the developers step in with major updates to revamp the endgame and address monetization concerns, there's potential for a resurgence. It's not clear they would do that though for the Western players, given the fact that the game is doing pretty well in Korea, with far less complaints from players there. If this is the state of the game on Steam, adding the bigger Eastern market audience, I would estimate the game to have a daily player peak count of about 80 or 90,000 players. For those who have never played it, it's still worth trying, especially if you enjoy flashy combat, epic boss battles, and big titty anime characters. Albion Online is a unique MMO that blends high-stakes PvP with deep progression systems. Originally released in 2017, it's now available on PC, Mac, iOS, and Android. Unlike many MMOs, Albion is a full loot PvP experience. If you die, you drop your gear. It's not very hard to replace the gear, but it still hurts when you lose. Progression in Albion is all about practice. The more you use a weapon or craft an item, the more you level up that skill, unlocking new abilities and upgrades along the way. While the game is free to play and doesn't require a sub, an optional premium membership makes leveling up much faster. Albion has been growing steadily, thanks to both the mobile release and the addition of dedicated servers for Asia and EU. In the early days, only North America servers existed, meaning high ping could be a real problem for international players. Now with better server distribution, the experience is much smoother worldwide. The game's player base is thriving, with regular updates, a strong content creator community, and a dedicated audience. Recent data from the developer showed a 350,000 active daily players record, with Steam's concurrent record at 27,000 at the same date. But since most players use the official client or mobile, Steam is not the full picture. But if we use some simple maths and say at its peak it was somewhere around 140k daily active users on Steam, because remember this number is just a momentary peak, not a whole day. So when it was 140k on Steam, it was 350k total. Then now with about 12k peak on Steam, it would be a daily active player count of about 80,000. Then with cross multiplication, assuming no other variables, I would estimate the current total peak player count to be somewhere around 100,000 players, or maybe more. If you love risk versus reward gameplay and the idea of an MMO with mobile-like combat, Albion Online is worth checking out. And while the game allows for some pay-to-win elements, the full loot system keeps things interesting, because if someone else pays for it, you can kill them and take their shit. The Elder Scrolls Online has announced a major shift in its content release model, moving away from its annual chapter expansions in favor of a seasonal structure. This decision follows previous changes moving away from Q4 Zone DLCs and Q3 Dungeon Packs. According to the developers, this new approach aims to allow for more varied content, though it comes as a surprise to many players. ESO, which recently celebrated its 10th anniversary, remains one of the more story-driven MMOs on the market, with a blockbuster cast of voice actors. I mean, look at that. All those names. The game features a mix of single-player content, 4-player dungeons, and 12-player raids, with 3 tiers of difficulty. While it leans towards a casual-friendly experience, it also offers PvP, player housing, and action-based combat, setting it apart from traditional tab-targeting MMOs. The game operates on a buy-to-play model, meaning players can purchase the base game and access hundreds of hours of content, but a subscription unlocks the full experience, including past DLCs. ESO remains popular across platforms, even though it doesn't have crossplay, with the minority of players being on Steam. I would estimate a total peak daily player count of somewhere around 100,000 players. The game has struggled to maintain its player base in recent years. This decline may have influenced the decision to move away from the traditional expansion model in hopes of revitalizing engagement.
The Throne.
Throne and Liberty, a highly anticipated MMO from a major AAA company, spent over 12 years in development. Despite the extensive effort behind it, the game has struggled to meet expectations. With a strong focus on PvP and a clunky combat system, coupled with a heavy pay-to-win model, it has quickly become more of a cash grab than a lasting MMO experience. Players who prefer a fair, grind-based progression find themselves at a major disadvantage against those willing to swipe their credit cards, making the experience feel more like a job than an enjoyable game. Upon launch, Throne and Liberty peaked at around 330,000 players on Steam, but has since declined to roughly 40,000 in less than 4 months. Oof. The numbers are higher though, when factoring in console players on PS5 and Xbox, as well as Korean versions of the game. I'd say it's more in the range of 150k, but the downward trend cannot be just for Steam only, and it remains concerning. Unlike many other Korean MMOs, Throne and Liberty attempts to adopt a more westernized design philosophy, incorporating traditional PvE content such as dungeons, raids, and solo bosses with unique mechanics. However, its clunky tab-targeting combat system and emphasis on large-scale guild wars leaves much to be desired. One of the few positives is that the game does not rely on an endless RNG grind for progression, which is a common drawback in many Korean MMOs. However, unless the developers address core gameplay issues and release engaging content updates, the player base is likely to continue shrinking throughout 2025. Many had high hopes for Throne and Liberty, but its monetization strategy and lackluster mechanics have driven players away. If the developers can make meaningful improvements, there's still a chance for a turnaround. In fact, as I was writing this, they just announced a new free expansion called Wilds of Talandre, which seems to promise some content updates, and we can't complain that it's free. It's also not far off, it's releasing on the 6th of March, so hopefully that might be the start of some upward potential for this game. Black Desert Online first launched in Korea before making its way to the West a year later in 2016. Known for its breathtaking graphics and fast-paced fluid combat, BDO stands out as a true open-world sandbox MMORPG. Unlike many MMOs that revolve around dungeons and raids, BDO is all about grinding, spending hours slaying mobs in the open world for incremental progress. The game is also heavily PvP focused, with open-world PvP combat enabled once you hit level 50. While that doesn't mean you'll constantly be ganked, it's a defining feature that makes the game particularly appealing to PvPers. Despite its popularity, BDO has had its fair share of controversy, especially in the West. Its former publisher implemented aggressive monetization practices that made it too much of a pay-to-win game. However, since the developer Pearl Abyss took over direct publishing from Kakao Games, they've rolled back some of the more unpopular aspects, making it a better experience for returning players. BDO boasts a diverse roster of unique classes and continues to receive regular updates. In recent years, the developers have introduced more traditional PvE content alongside the core grind-heavy gameplay. While player numbers have declined following the last expansion, the bleeding has slowed, and the game still maintains a strong community. Though Steam stats don't give an accurate picture of its player base, due to multiple regional launches and different platforms, estimates suggest that BDO still sees a peak concurrent player count of about 150,000 players, especially in Asia, where it remains one of the most played MMOs. If anyone says MMOs lose popularity with age, just show them old school RuneScape. This game has not only stood the test of time, but has continued to gain players and relevance since its launch. Originally created due to community demand after RuneScape introduced more modern MMO mechanics, like action-based combat and a cash shop, OSRS remains a true throwback to the golden age of MMOs. One of the biggest reasons for its success is its accessibility. You can play OSRS on almost any computer from the past 2 decades, or even your phone. The system requirements are so low that it might be the most accessible MMO out there. But beyond that, the game is completely player-driven, with every major change requiring a community vote before being implemented. Unlike many MMOs, old-school RuneScape doesn't force you down a linear path. Instead, it lets players carve their own adventures. Whether it's slaying monsters, completing quests, or leveling up various skills, it's a game about making the numbers go up. Crafting, fishing, sword fighting, almost anything you can think of can be leveled. Thanks to its sandbox approach and the ability to AFK skill, OSRS has a unique appeal, drawing in players who enjoy its slow but rewarding progression. The game has evolved significantly over the years, and with the RuneLite client, it's more customizable than ever. It supports crossplay on mobile, and frequent updates keep the content fresh. An official HD mode is expected to launch in 2025 as well, further enticing new adventurers. Despite its clunky combat system and old-school UI, the depth and addictiveness of the game makes it one of the most enduring MMOs ever made. By the numbers, OSRS consistently peaks at over 150,000 concurrent players, and it continues climbing. With its ever-growing player base and strong community backing, OSRS isn't just surviving, it's thriving. At this rate, it's still gonna be around for years and years to come, proving once again that some classics never die. Final Fantasy XIV stands as a shining example of how fair monetization can lead to long-term success in the MMO genre. This fantasy MMO places a strong emphasis on storytelling, seamlessly integrating dungeons, trials, and major cutscenes into its overarching narrative. Unlike other MMOs that separate story and PvE elements, FF14 ensures every aspect of gameplay enhances the player's immersion. With 22 distinct classes adhering to traditional tank, healer, and DPS roles, the game offers a dynamic and varied experience. Its highly regarded free trial allows newcomers to explore the first 70 levels and 2 expansions at no cost. Beyond that, players must purchase the game and maintain a subscription, which eliminates pay-to-win mechanics, loot crates, and exploitative monetization. Instead, FF14 rewards engagement with a vast selection of earnable cosmetics and mounts, enriching the gameplay experience without reliance on microtransactions. As a leading rival to World of Warcraft, FF14 follows a similar expansion cycle, launching a major update approximately every 2 years. While precise player statistics remain elusive, especially since Steam represents only a small segment of the total player base, the game's popularity is undeniable. Despite WoW Classic's recent surge in interest and the somewhat disappointing latest expansion, Dawn Trail, FF14 continues to thrive. likely reaching a peak player count of about 200,000 players across various platforms and regions. I've also seen other estimates online that say 1 million a day. Whatever it is, the reason it's not in the #1 spot is just because that spot has been unreachable for 20 years. With its rich narrative, extensive content offerings, and fair business model, FF14 remains a dominant force in the MMO genre, delivering one of the most captivating experiences available today. And the winner is, surprise, World of Warcraft, which has seen a remarkable resurgence after the self-inflicted headshot that was Shadowlands. With the last 2 expansions receiving strong praise, WoW has been on an impressive 5-year streak of player growth, an incredible feat for a game that's been around for more than 2 decades. While it may no longer dominate the MMO landscape as it once did, WoW remains a powerhouse, with competitors like OSRS and FF14 keeping it on its toes. One of WoW's greatest strengths has always been its massive seamless world. Unlike many other MMOs that rely on smaller zones connected by frequent loading screens, Azeroth allows you to see distant locations, hop on your mount and fly there without interruption. The sheer scale of this world still makes players feel small in the presence of towering structures and vast landscapes. Visually, WoW has aged far better than one would expect. A combination of a timeless art style and continual engine upgrades has kept it feeling modern despite its age. The game's core mechanics remain intact, built around the classic MMO trinity of tank, healer and DPS, with 13 unique classes offering multiple specializations and a unique, addictive and a responsive combat. Whether players want to tackle dungeons, take on high-end raids, or simply level through the extensive single-player content, there's no shortage of things to do. However, WoW's dungeons and raids still demand a serious time investment, so be prepared for a commitment. Though Blizzard stopped publicly sharing subscriber numbers nearly a decade ago, estimates suggest that WoW remains on top of the MMO scene. In 2024, Bellular Gaming, or Bellular Warcraft, estimated that the game has around 7 million active subscribers, and this was even before the War Within, which was a success, which means the numbers probably went even further up after that estimation. Thanks to its flexible subscription model, players can jump between retail, classic, and seasonal variants, depending on what's trending at the time. Across Twitch, YouTube, Reddit, and other social platforms, WoW continues to lead in engagement, proving that even after 20 years, it's still a major force in the genre, and it doesn't look like it's going anywhere anytime soon. 2024 has seen a significant shake-up in MMO popularity, with games falling off of a cliff and games rising from the ashes, so to speak. No pun intended on ashes of creation. Now please tell me what you think about this list. Did any of those results surprise you? Which of those games are you playing or thinking of going back to? And if you made it this far, then hopefully you found this video helpful. So thank you for your time, and if you want to see more RPG or MMO news, reviews and content like this, please hit the like, sub and ring the bell so you don't miss the coming videos. Thanks again, and see you in the next video.